Hello, everybody, and welcome to Greet the Week. Wait, hang on just a second. All right. This is Jan Moray, and I have our co-host, Mona Duncan, who's leading the discussion today. And we have a couple of guests who are on. And today, Mona wants to talk about reflection. So what's on your mind, Mona?
Well, I just look at the fact that most of us know ourselves only by hearsay.
Okay.
It's what other people say about us, say to us, the feedback that we receive, pleasant, not so pleasant, and that as we reflect on who we think we are, and then, how that feedback matches or doesn't match, and then just to begin to reflect. I mean, looking in a mirror, science tells us, the mirror tells us that everything is actually backward.
Right, yes.
and that we are not seeing the true image. And so we've never seen ourselves. I mean, I can see my hands and, my feet and legs, but other than that, everything that I can see about me is through a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also through other people, because other people reflect us to us, and we reflect them to them. And it's just making the time, taking the time, seeing that, the book that I've written, Creating Value, an intangible and a tangible world. And we just live we're tactile individuals, and we live with the stuff, which is okay. But in the process of doing that, how do we really think about it and see the transcendence in the solid? Is that?
Yeah. We have to rely on others, because we think of things a certain way and do something, and it may not come out quite the way we expected, and we need that feedback. We need others to tell us how it sounded.
Right. And I think back of the old Bible story of the nation was looking for, or the story, the nation was looking for a king. And so the appointers of the king go to look, and they went to this guy named Jesse, and he had a lot of sons. And I'm thinking, boy, this is really a well-known family, and maybe we'll grab one of his sons and have him be in the running for king. And he talked to all the sons, and they had great qualifications and everything. And they said, no, I guess it's not one of these sons. The thing of it is that family had another son, that he was just a ruddy little kid who was out in the field taking care of the sheep and just totally overlooked,
Mm-hmm.
And in the scheme of life, that one is the one that became the king.
Yeah.
The point of it is, and going back to, some of the reflections that David had written about his life and everything. And he said, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, we are just so unique and wonderful individuals. And I may be putting a little emphasis in. I don't know. I was just reading it, But he followed up on that and saying, and that my soul knows right well. And I think that all of us know internally that, what? I matter. I'm important.
Yeah.
And that whenever those times that we're passed over or overlooked, sometimes we want to yell it out, I'm important, I matter. But it comes out as acting out.
Yes, it does. It does. Because usually by the time you say that, you're pretty frustrated.
Right.
And all that emotion comes out.
And in the acting out, it's more off-putting than it is drawing to us what we're wanting.
Right. Yeah.
It's like whenever we're running from something, it may have been that we didn't have enough information to handle it. We may be running from something, but even though we're running from something, life has taken on a direction that we're also running to something.
And it may be something better, huh?
It may be something better. It may be something worse. It may be something just to soothe that bruised ego.
Yeah.
And so as we reflect on where I am, what was happening, and reflect on the deep, who am I really? And am I going about this in a way that is effective, or is it being ineffective, even though, I mean, sometimes even telling someone off may seem real effective
Right.
in the instant, in the moment.
Well, it might be effective for us. It helps release all that stuff that we've been holding in.
Right. But what's it doing to the relationship? What's it doing in the long run?
Yeah.
And as we begin to really look at those reflections and reflect back on, and what did I really mean, or what did I not mean, or what was I just going with that was more tactile rather than was a deeper meaning inside.
Yeah. And then we can take it to extremes, reflecting too much and then start reading things into it that aren't really there.
Exactly.
A delicate balance there.
And that's where feedback comes from.
Yeah.
And we also need to begin to look at that feedback and getting bottom line honest with everything. So I made a little chart here.
Okay.
I can kind of hold this up so you can see what I'm talking about. Is it backwards? It's backwards to me.
No, it's not. But it's not to me. So you're
okay, because there's a little mirror. There's a little mirror inside.
Okay. We're seeing the true you.
So right over here, I am looking at life from day one, okay? And life being life as it is, we have a lot of pluses, we have some minuses, we have some things that have been multipliable, either for good or for not so good. We have things that are, divisible, kind of takeaway. Sometimes the takeaway is okay, sometimes it's not. More adding, more subtracting. We could just have this on for however many years. But in everything, we always have to look at the bottom line. What is the bottom line? And as we look at that bottom line and really reflect on it, and we can't change any of these past things because they're already past. We just have to live in the here and now. So as we become aware of where we are right now, what we want right now, based on all the reflection, all the things that we think we want, think we need, think we have, think we this, okay? And then we take personal responsibility for what? For the maintenance of it, for the growth of it, for the if it isn't growing, we take personal responsibility for the fact that how have I been too aggressive, not aggressive enough? You take personal responsibility.
How I can learn from the situation.
Right. What can I learn from it? What do I yet need to learn? Right. And then we continually want to self-evaluate, which is also more of taking personal responsibility, to kind of taking it apart to look at it. And then we want to go, well, what's the plan? I have the plan, but maybe I don't have all the tools. Maybe I need more information. Maybe I need to counsel with someone. And so we're coming back up eventually to get up here to being aware of the effectiveness. But we have to get bottom line honest with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line honest. Because if we don't get bottom line honest with who we are and what we're contributing to the issue, then first of all, we may not be that open to taking personal responsibility because we may already think we're doing enough.
Well, I think we need to have an idea of what we want to be, how we want to be in these difficult situations. Do we want to be the one who grows from the negatives? Do we want to be the one who's helpful? Or are we okay with being the one who gets all upset and all excited about what's happening?
Yeah. Are we just the one that, we're the pointer that points out all the problems?
Right. Because whenever I can plan, I think, well, I have to know what my end point is, where I'm headed, in order to know how to change. So if I want to be the one who's level-headed and able to deal with a situation and grow from a situation and try not to get upset at people who are giving me constructive feedback, then I'm going to respond differently depending upon the way, how important it is for me to be the one who's not getting upset.
Right. And it's like, writing music, there may be a message that wants to come across in whatever music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that composition, but it's not the end result. It's just a part of the journey. And it was, like Jerry talked about a couple of weeks ago, is it the journey or the end of it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's both and, but it's enjoying the journey even if we never get to the end.
Right, right.
And we can do that, by reflecting on what was the outcome of today. And if it, did it meet expectations? How did it not? And how can I handle it regardless? And find some growth and some meaning in it. That music, music is an expression of, and it's expression of just for its being. Whereas when we're taking a journey, and life is a journey, there's no doubt about that.
Yes,
we're running from something, or we're going towards something, we're also leaving something behind. I mean, every day that we age, we're also, not only are we getting older, those paradoxes, we can learn from them. We can learn so much. It just opens the mystery of the universe to think about and to reflect on. And when you're running from something, you're also running to something. When you're running to something, you're also running from something. And how can we bring those together to see that they're all a part of the music of life?
Mm.
That they're all a part of the journey, all a part of the being, not just living.
Well, just being aware of where we're running to and where we're running from, and have that enter into our decision as to, is this what I really want to do? Do I want both of those things to coexist in my life, or do I want to totally put this one away and keep going into the safe side?
I have a question. In your chart, Mona, you had self-evaluation.
Right.
When do you conduct the self-evaluation?
Continually.
All the time.
Yeah. And that's part of bringing us into the awareness. And that self-evaluation is evaluating us with us, definitely. But it's also evaluating us, what we're thinking, what we're doing, and, following behind how are our feelings relating to what we're thinking and what we're doing, because our feelings always follow thoughts and actions. Mm-hmm. But in evaluating that, not only look at it as in, what I am going toward, but also what is that feedback coming to me?
Are the feelings the cause or the effect?
Effect.
It's never the cause.
Well.
Yeah, I think it's both.
You think, well, it's both in that it's part of our total behavior. Yeah. In that we cannot divorce feelings from the thoughts and the actions and our physiology.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, but I
but like the back wheels on the car, they follow where the front two go.
Because sometimes you feel the feelings first before you realize what your thoughts were about it. I mean,
yeah.
I find that a lot, where I'm having a negative feeling and I'm going, okay, what's behind this? Why do I have this cloud over me today? And then I go back and think about, okay, what happened today and what was going on and what were my thoughts about it? And it really is. It's my thoughts that end up bringing me down. Mm-hmm. And then I have to go attack those and say, okay, should I believe these? Can I change it? Because there's something I can do about it. And so, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, and sometimes I just have to do something else, like do Sudoku, or for me,
because action is a distraction. It can get our mind off of it, right, so that we can be more relaxed and go in another direction,
right,
and to look at it. But when we dance, you just dance. You just go around. You just kind of go around and go with the music and go with the flow, and the target is not to, where do we wind up on the dance floor? You just wind up wherever the music takes you.
Mm-hmm.
And as we reflect on life, and we just we learn to flow with it more by looking at not only what we are thinking, feeling, acting, doing, physiology, getting well, getting sicker, but also how is it coming out in and through others, and in and through our environment in which we're in. Which is easier to change, the environment or the organism?
Yeah.
Well, we are the organism.
Right.
And the environment is comprised of other organisms, but is it easier, not that either is super easy, is it easier to teach a fish how to wear a scuba mask, or is it easier to clean up the polluted
tank
pond? And so in those environments, but we have to be the one that begins that changing internally before it can begin to produce itself externally.
Yeah.
Either in getting the trash out of the pond, the scum out of the pond, or in the fussing and the arguing and the disagreements and so forth in the environment of the work or the home atmosphere or the neighborhood.
Well, people who are constantly changing, they're saying, I need to get out of this place, changing their environment.
Right.
This work is a negative environment. I need to go somewhere else. I need to go get another job. And sometimes that's true, because different work environments, some are very positive and others not so much. But then after you've changed 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, you got to turn inside and go, okay, maybe it's not so much my environment. Maybe there's something that I need to do as well. And we're so quick to want to change the environment because it's so much easier for us to say that the problem is out there instead of to look inside, to do that self-evaluation piece that says, okay, well, maybe there's something else I can do. Maybe I need to change my thinking. Maybe
I have the common denominator.
Yeah, that common denominator is me.
And when it is, then I have something I can work with.
Right. You've got a lot more control over that.
Right.
In your environment. I mean, a poor fish can't really clean up his pond or his tank, but we can do what we can do for ourselves. He can get a scuba mask, I guess, and maybe he can find a nice spot in the water that's good for him.
But it's just looking at and finding the meaning in life, not just the experiences of finding presence in oneself rather than trying to conform to societal dictates.
Yeah, that conforming to society. Well, first of all, we have our own idea of what we think that society is telling us. And then, we try to conform to something that probably really isn't real, but we think it is, and we drive ourselves crazy trying to reach this goal that isn't there.
And then, too, sometimes in the thinking, it can become so all collective, as in everybody thinks this.
Yeah.
And, either direction, the more positive or the negative, well, some think that. But as we can begin to look at the fact that's not a definition of everything, everyone, every interest, may not even be, but just, and begin to look at that and to lovingly observe without judging. And that doesn't mean that we don't form an opinion, that we don't see, but it's without judging, as in everybody thinks this way, or everybody thinks. Some may not.
Right.
What's the difference between forming an opinion and judging?
Well, semantically, maybe nothing.
What about psychologically?
I'm sorry?
Psychologically.
It's seeing it from my point of view, And my point of view in that instance, whatever that instance is based on all those memories that continually flow through our being, those go-to things, the habits, that kind of stuff. It's going with that based on what we've experienced thus far in life. It's based on what our bottom line is up to that moment, what our bottom line is. And our bottom line may not be what someone else's bottom line is. And so what we are saying to us may have a real ring of absolute truth. But when we put it out into the atmosphere, it is, if we're holding on to it, that everybody in that, everyone in that environment needs to accept it and receive it the way I'm seeing it, then it's bringing more difficulty than it is expanding.
I still don't understand the difference. Opinion and judging. People always say, don't judge, don't judge, don't judge. But I don't know. You have to judge sometimes.
Exactly.
You have to. It's stupid to say don't judge. It's stupid. I don't get that.
Well, to me, whenever somebody says don't judge, if they say it that way, don't judge me, I think they're insecure in what they're doing. And to me, that's kind of like a comment that says, I don't want you to say anything negative about this because I'm not secure about it and I don't want to get into that discussion because I don't want to feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But we do have our opinions and we do judge people, but then we can decide whether we're going to say something about it or let it be.
We can judge, definitely, and yeah, we do, and have an opinion, opine over it. We can have a judgment of it without being judgmental.
Well, what if you say you could judge an action but not the person?
Right.
Is that the difference? Is that?
Well, yes, it really is. You can judge what we can see. We can judge the fruit of. We can judge the demeanor, or what we think the demeanor is. Someone that's sitting all like this, we may judge them as being closed off, and that may not be the problem. It's to realize that the way I see something is really not the whole of what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing, that there's a depth to it.
So maybe an opinion is a primary, whereas a judgment is a more final thing. Is that maybe the difference?
I don't know. I just don't know. Kind of, we have words. Every word has power, and it gains its power sometimes by the way we use it and the weight that we put on it. And sometimes we put more weight on them than they belong, and sometimes we don't put enough weight to them, or as in self-evaluating. That self-evaluating is, evaluating you with you, but it's also evaluating you with the way you are seeing how other people are interacting with you. Because we can't, we're not an island unto ourselves. And everything we do is influencing and affecting others because we're all connected. And as we really begin to reflect, think about, and by that reflection is that we are seeing in hindsight something we didn't see in the moment, or in what we were thinking the outcome might be.
Well, could it have something to do with, I have an opinion on something and you're doing something that's not really congruent with my opinion, but I accept you for who you are. And so I'm not going to judge or criticize or say anything about it. I mean, you're still doing the judging because your opinion is different, but by accepting that person, you're not making the opinion known or trying to convince the other person that what they're doing or how they're being is not right. I don't know, that just came to my mind of thinking of some way to look at it.
Yeah. Well, it's just that personal reflection. And sometimes even in our reflections, we can not be 100% accurate, but our higher self, our soul, has a tendency, the four brains that we have, that the epigenetics and all the neuroscience and everything is finding. The one we have in our brain, that definitely our control system, or at least it lights up, because that's what it's sending putting the chemicals together that's keeping the body working. But we also have a brain in our heart. We have a brain in our gut. We have a brain in our creative reproductive system. And they're always sending messages. And they're finding more and more times, especially with the heart nav, and the heart nav is looking that there are signals going from the heart that never makes it to the brain. And as we begin to reflect and think, I know I am a person of worth and value. I know it deep down inside. But because we're not seeing it reflected in others, sometimes we begin to act out in ways that is more often, until we can begin to really reflect on the fact that, you know what, I matter. Even though I was overlooked, I still matter.
Yeah.
And I still have gifts and talents. And as we also begin to reflect that, you know what, even though I overlooked someone else, or even though I treated someone as maybe their opinion didn't matter, as I begin to, you know what, it does matter. It does matter. And then just let there be a little shift in us that can give a little more air, a little more moisture, so that, whatever it is that needs to flow through, whether it's to the brain where it'll register and actually work, or whether it needs to go in the draught and be dismissed, we can have a little bit more fluidity to either act on it or not. And that reflection, think about what you think about. Well, I don't have anything else. I've already had too much, huh?
Well, this is a difficult topic for me. I was looking at the reflection thing. What opinion do I have about it? This is not something that I have thought about too much. So this is a good one to ponder a little bit and see what else comes up.
Yeah.
I mean,
because, a lot of things that we think have settled, and they have settled, and sometimes, just like being a peacemaker, sometimes you have to roil the waters to get things to come up before they can be settled, or skimmed off or something to be settled.
Yeah, we need to make a little noise, huh? We need to stir things up a little bit, because it's going just too quiet.
Yeah, reflect. Yeah. So that whenever the reflection that we think we're seeing, not only in self, but also in others, with others, for others, how they react to us, and we see it differently. It's kind of like having the picture come back, the picture that was taken of us, and we look at it, oh, I'm not that fat, or I'm not that, and we begin to realize that maybe this is giving a more accurate picture of me that I'm willing to look at.
Yeah, the whole thing about the picture versus the reflection, I've thought about the science part of it, because you're looking at the reflection, and that's what you're used to seeing is your face in the mirror. You're not seeing your face in pictures, because your face in the picture is the exact opposite of what you look at in the mirror. And so when you're looking at things from the opposite side, it's not the same as what you're used to seeing, so that our pictures of ourselves don't look that good, because we're just not used to seeing ourselves that way. And I think if we saw ourselves more in pictures than in mirrors, maybe we would like our pictures better. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that out. So how does that work with the whole reflection thing, where we're reflecting on ourselves, using that analogy? Is
Right.
because we're always looking at ourselves through other people, and we don't really see ourselves as we really are.
Yeah. And so as we begin to be okay with seeing that reflection, then we can be more okay. Whether, you know, as I, you know, said in the little blurb that I put, we reflect on the image we think we see and the image the camera produces and the information we receive from others, both verbal and nonverbal. And we may come to a more accurate indication of who we really are and be A-okay with it. Yeah, okay, that's who I am. That's the size I am. That's the demeanor that I project. Okay, I'm okay with that. Or we may begin to realize, you know what? No. What I'm seeing reflected back to me is not in keeping with what, it's not as kind. It's not as, you know, whatever verbiage you want to put to it. It's not as confident. It's not as, or it's too confident, or it's, you know, that maybe I'm giving an opinion and maybe I'm giving it with such a dogma that everyone just walks away rather than giving some credence to it, that there may have been a smidgen of truth in it. And just like there's good and evil, there's evil and good. And if it wasn't both of them together, we would never have been into anything that wasn't good for us. Because there's something there that's always has that lure to it, that has that hook.
Yeah.
And it's through reflection that we can think about, and, you know, what was that jab? What was that feeling? What was that lure? And again, whether the lure was, or what was that threat? Whether it was a positive or a negative, or whether it was just to reflect.
Yeah, something to think about and reflect upon.
Right.
All
So,
right.
thanks for being here. Thanks for loving me anyway.
We did. Well, thank you for that. And let us know if you have any questions or comments or any other topics you'd like for us to discuss. And that's all for today, and we'll see you next week.